Instant messaging apps have become an even more important tool for so many of us, especially over the past several months. When the lockdown happened, we turned to these apps for almost everything, from making phone calls here and abroad to messaging family and friends to monitoring the news and for doing business. Viber has become a destination for buying and selling food, gadgets, and even clothing. But the question is, how safe is our information on Viber? Joining us now to talk to us about digital privacy is Djamel Agaoua. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Viber. Hello, Jamel. Glad you could join us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you now. Jamel, as with any instant messaging apps, Viber has been constantly updating its features to keep up with the demand. You could say that privacy has always been at the forefront in the very DNA of Viber, and I hear you say that often. Tell us a little bit about why that's so important for you guys.
It's important because we want to offer an alternative, and we want to. We know that some people are very sensitive to this, and we decided to make our DNA to defend the user's rights and to the user data and the user chat and calls. It's very important to make sure that when you choose your communication platform, that you go with the ones that give you this promise and respect this promise. So at Viber, for example, we just don't read chat and calls, and we make sure that even our engineers cannot access the chat and calls of our users.
Right. So that's encrypted from end to end, really. But I mean, I think many users, myself included, I don't know if we pay close enough attention to the fine print for the terms of use and how our data will be used. Help us understand why we should be a little more concerned about, ticking that box and just saying, yeah, go ahead and use my data. How is our data mined, used, and passed around and sold, so on and so forth? Why should we be so concerned?
Because if you look at other platforms, the only source of revenue they have is advertising. And those platforms are then to maximize the revenue opportunity, to maximize the advertising revenue. They collect tons of data on the users, meaning their phone numbers, the phone number of their friends, who they contact with, what they say, what they talk about, what they like, what they don't like, because they want to know as much as possible of the users to be able to target the ads and make more money. At Viber, advertising is a secondary revenue. We do less than 20% of our revenue in advertising, which means that we don't need to collect this data, and we just don't do it. We just don't collect the likes, for example. We just don't store information. And any information that we store, which is the fewest as possible, we ask permission officially to the users. And if you don't want to share this information, you can still use Viber. It's possible.
Right. I suppose you have to decide on what elements or what particular practices and, how would you call it, corporate culture really sort of works for you on which messaging app you do use. I mean, oftentimes when we collect data, it's often for the reason of, quote unquote, an enhanced user experience for more targeted, like you said, advertising, whether that's advertising or just targeting your interests and making sure that those interests are serviced. Tell us a little bit about how Viber is at protecting our data, but at the same time providing us with a service that sort of caters to our needs and interests.
We may collect information on the users about what they like for our own purpose only.
Right.
So if we see that, for example, you are going to some communities or groups talking about sports, we may propose you a little bit more sports, but not only sports. But we're not going to share this information with other people to bring you more ads or things like that. It's very important to understand the difference, because other platforms, they will go until reading what you say to your friends or to your family in a call or in a chat to define what you like and what they should send you the next time you come. Right. We don't do that. At Viber, the content of the chat and the calls is not accessible because of end-to-end encryption. And any content that you consume on Viber, I mean, public content, for example, may be used to bring you more content of the type on Viber only, and not to be shared and to be monetized with third parties or advertisers, for example.
All right, Jamel, with over 1 billion users, over 7 million interactions per minute, how then should we be a little more careful about our digital privacy? A couple of tips, perhaps, on how we can be a little bit more careful with our data and choosing what messaging app we choose.
Well, there is something a little bit boring to do sometimes. It's to check a little bit the terms and condition. And recently, one of our competition has changed the terms and condition, and then privacy became a topic again. We don't do that often, I know, but the key things that you need to look at is how targeted are the ads that you're receiving. And when you receive an ad, for example, which relates to something that you have just said to a friend or to your mother, to your father 20 minutes ago, there is a good chance that the platform that you use to talk or to call has listened to you and then has used this information against you to push you an ad related to that. And it's a very important information. And be careful with that, because there are so many platforms using your data in your back to make money. It's important that the users get transparency. And this is what we try to propose at Viber, full transparency about what we are doing and what we are not doing as well, which is basically to read the content of the chat and calls of users.
Right. I suppose the lesson here really is to dot your T's, or rather dot your I's and cross your T's, and read the fine print of the terms of use. Thank you so much for joining us this morning here on New Day, Djamel Agaoua, CEO of Viber.